The bed is 2 feet wide, 4 inches thick, and it is not yours. On some U.S. Navy submarines, there are fewer bunks than sailors, 94 beds for 135 crew on one boat, so you share your mattress in shifts with someone you might never meet face to face. The shower lasts 4 minutes. The galley is 80 square feet. The air you breathe is manufactured by a machine, and the water you drink was oceaned 30 minutes ago. This is not a deployment story. This is daily life inside a nuclear attack submarine, where 140 people live in the space of a 3-bedroom house, and every routine keeps a warship lethal. Here is how they do it. A Virginia-class nuclear attack submarine stretches 377 feet from bow to stern, 34 feet across the beam, 145 souls packed inside a steel cylinder designed to disappear beneath the ocean and stay there for months. The U.S. Navy's official fact file lays those numbers out plainly, and they sound manageable until you translate them into living space. A Los Angeles Times report on life aboard the nuclear attack submarine USS Jefferson City put it bluntly: a crew of 140 sharing living quarters comparable to a 3-bedroom house with passageways so narrow that sailors routinely turn sideways just to pass each other. That is not a barracks. That is not a ship. That is a weapons platform that happens to have humans inside it. And here is the thing most people never consider. Nuclear power can keep a submarine running almost indefinitely. The reactor does not get tired. The propulsion plant does not need sleep. The Smithsonian's National Museum of American History explains it clearly. Nuclear power provides virtually unlimited endurance. But patrol duration is constrained by something the reactor cannot fix: human endurance and how much food you can physically carry aboard. Food is the bulkiest commodity on the boat, and it becomes the limiting factor. Fresh provisions last roughly 2 weeks. After that, everything comes from cans, freezers, and dried stores. The machine could keep going. The crew cannot, not without eating, sleeping, breathing manufactured air, and drinking water squeezed from the sea through a membrane. That sets up the 3 survival systems that determine whether a submarine stays lethal or falls apart from the inside: sleep, water, and food. Each one is a logistics problem, a social contract, and an engineering marvel all wrapped into one. And each one operates inside a war machine whose primary mission is to seek and destroy enemy submarines and surface ships, project power with Tomahawk cruise missiles, deploy special operations forces, collect intelligence, support carrier battle groups, and conduct mine warfare. Every shower, every meal, every 6-hour stretch of unconsciousness happens in the margins left over after the combat systems take what they need. If you think America has the strongest military in the world, type proud in the comments, because the people who live like this are the reason. Start with sleep, because sleep is where the submarine breaks every assumption a civilian carries about rest. The mattress alone removes all abstraction. The U.S. Navy Shipboard Mattress Performance Specification lists submarine crew mattresses in 2 sizes: 73 inches by 24 inches by 4 inches and 76 inches by 24 inches by 4 inches. There is also a dedicated torpedo room mattress, 71 inches by 21 inches by 4 inches. 24 inches is roughly 2 feet wide. That is narrower than a child's bed. And you are sleeping on it inside a steel tube that vibrates, hums with machinery, and never once turns into night. There is no window. There is no sunset. There is no darkness that was not created by someone flipping a switch. Now multiply that claustrophobia by a math problem the Navy cannot fully solve. A public account from aboard USS Missouri describes approximately 94 beds for approximately 135 crew members. That is a deficit of over 40 racks. The solution is hot racking, sharing a bunk in shifts. You climb into a mattress that someone else just left. A separate account from aboard USS John Warner confirms the same reality on a different boat. More sailors than beds, with crew members sleeping on mattresses placed on top of torpedo cradles during underway operations. The classic submariner rule of thumb is 3 guys sharing 2 beds. Your personal space is a curtain and a code of mutual silence. And that silence is not optional, it is survival. The USS Missouri account describes unwritten rules that prevent conflict in confinement. No slamming doors ever because someone is always sleeping. No talking politics. These are not suggestions printed in a handbook. They are social agreements enforced by proximity and exhaustion because the most scarce resource on a submarine is not torpedo tubes or reactor fuel. It is uninterrupted sleep. The Navy knows this, and it changed the way submarines operate because of it. A Proceedings essay written by a submariner describes the older watch rotation as an 18-hour day, with 6 hours on watch, 6 hours for maintenance and personal time, and 6 hours of protected sleep. That cycle sounds efficient on paper, but it waged war on the human body. An 18-hour day never aligns with circadian rhythm. You are perpetually jet-lagged in a place with no sun to reset your clock. The Navy moved to a 24-hour watch rotation, with 8 hours on watch, 8 hours for maintenance and personal time, and 8 hours of protected sleep, specifically because the old schedule degraded crew performance. Sleep is not a comfort item on a submarine. Sleep is readiness. The Navy treats it that way because a fatigued sonar operator can miss the contact that kills the boat. Now consider the shower. Nuclear submarines can produce their own fresh water. That is a fact most people know. What they do not know is that water use is still socially policed as tightly as rack space. An account from aboard USS Missouri describes the etiquette of shower time. 3 to 5 minutes is considered considerate, and that number is not arbitrary. It reflects water runtime and the system's need to cycle out dirty water for clean. The engineering works through reverse osmosis, seawater forced through a pressurized membrane that strips the salt and produces fresh water. NAVSEA's public fact file for an advanced reverse osmosis unit describes the process clearly: pressurized membrane filtration turning salt water into fresh water to meet both consumption and machinery needs. Even with a nuclear reactor powering the system, water has to be produced, stored, managed, and kept sanitary. Every gallon a sailor uses in the shower is a gallon the desalination system has to replace. Taking a long shower is not laziness, it is an antisocial act. But water is only half the hygiene equation. The other half is air, and on a submarine, there is no such thing as fresh air. A report from aboard USS John Warner describes a chemical smell that permeates the boat, an amine odor that sailors say soaks into clothing and skin. That amine is not an accident. It is the chemical compound used in the air cleaning system to scrub carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide from the sealed atmosphere. Collins Aerospace, a major supplier of U.S. submarine life support systems, publicly describes oxygen generation units that produce breathable oxygen through electrolysis of water using proton exchange membrane technology, and a modern carbon dioxide removal unit that uses solid amine to capture carbon dioxide, an improvement over older liquid amine systems that required more maintenance and removed less gas. That is the reveal most civilians never process. Breathable air on a submarine is not something you access. It is something you manufacture and scrub continuously inside a sealed loop. The shower reframes entirely once you understand this. You are not cleaning yourself in a bathroom. You are consuming manufactured water while breathing manufactured air inside a closed life support system 700 feet beneath the surface. A 4-minute shower is not deprivation. It is discipline inside a machine that keeps you alive only because every system stays in balance. Before we continue, take just a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of people watch these videos without subscribing, and it costs you absolutely nothing, but it helps us bring you more content like this. If you appreciate what we're doing here, show your support. Let's keep going. Now imagine feeding that crew every day for months. From a galley the Los Angeles Times described as 8 feet by 10 feet, 80 square feet, barely larger than a small apartment kitchen. That is the space where every meal for the entire submarine crew is prepared. The throughput is staggering. A Connecticut Office of Military Affairs feature on Virginia-class submarine cuisine breaks it down. 540 meals a day, calculated as roughly 135 crew members served 4 meals a day, with about 30 people eating at one time and sometimes additional riders embarked for special missions. The Smithsonian exhibit on submarine life confirms the logistics. The mess deck doubles as the boat's primary common space, and enlisted men eat in overlapping shifts to cycle through small seating areas. The provisioning numbers read like a military logistics exercise because that is exactly what they are. The Los Angeles Times reported that USS Jefferson City loaded 9,800 pounds of flour, 1,200 pounds of chicken, 1,000 pounds of prime rib, 1,000 pounds of ground beef, 800 pounds of potatoes, and 100 dozen eggs before a single deployment. Total food load was approximately 15,000 pounds, roughly 110 pounds per sailor per patrol, at a quoted food bill of about $80,000. A separate Virginia-class provisioning list from the Connecticut feature shows similar scale: 1,500 pounds of rib-eye rolled beef, 1,000 pounds of ground beef, 900 pounds of chicken breast, 5,500 pounds of flour, 2,500 pounds of sugar, and more than 1,000 pounds of coffee. At the start of a patrol, crew members literally walk on their provisions. The USS John Warner account describes canned goods stacked so high that sailors step on them until they eat their way down to the deck plates. Fresh produce goes first. The Smithsonian confirms it lasts about 2 weeks, and then the crew transitions to frozen, canned, and dried stores for the remainder. That is not a meal plan. That is a consumption countdown measured in altitude. And the meals matter far beyond nutrition. The Los Angeles Times quoted submariners describing food as the highlight of the day because in a sealed steel tube with no windows, no weather, and no variation in environment, the next meal becomes the primary marker of time and the primary source of morale. The Smithsonian notes that extra food funding makes submarine galleys the best feeders in the entire Navy, and that the mess deck serves as the only common space for training, studying, watching movies, playing games, and even lay-a-lead religious services. Submarines do not carry chaplains. The table where you eat lunch is the same table where someone holds a prayer service that evening. Most viewers never think to ask the next question: where does the trash go? On a surface ship, you throw it overboard. On a submarine running silent at depth, you cannot. The Smithsonian exhibit explains the process. Trash is tightly compacted into cylindrical steel mesh containers, and a 7-pound weight is attached to help it sink once ejected. Modern environmental regulations restrict what can be discharged, and when the submarine is rigged for quiet running, hunting an adversary, or evading detection, trash disposal stops entirely. Garbage accumulates for days, sometimes weeks, because the noise of ejecting a trash canister could alert an enemy submarine. Even throwing away a coffee cup becomes a tactical decision. The same principle applies to every dual-use space on the boat. The USS Missouri account describes the officer's wardroom doubling as an emergency operating theater and the torpedo room serving as an exercise area and overflow bunk room. Nothing on a submarine has one purpose. Everything flexes to serve the mission first, and human comfort fills whatever margin remains. That is not an accident. It is the cost of stealth, payload, and endurance, and the reason crew life constraints matter is not humanitarian. It is strategic. U.S. attack submarines exist to hunt other submarines and surface ships, to support strike and special operations missions, and to conduct intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Those roles demand around-the-clock operations, which is why sleep management, food morale, and closed environment habitability are operational issues, not lifestyle complaints. A crew that cannot think clearly cannot fight, and the competition demanding that clarity is growing. The Department of Defense. 2024 China Military Power Report states the People's Liberation Army Navy operates 6 nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines, 6 nuclear-powered attack submarines, and 48 diesel-powered and air-independent powered attack submarines. That force is projected to grow to 65 submarines by 2025 and 80 by 2035. China is building undersea capacity faster than any nation in history. quiet running trash discipline, 4-minute showers, and hot racking in a 24-inch bunk are not quirky traditions. They are the price of staying invisible in an ocean where the adversary's submarine fleet is expanding every year. Russia adds a different kind of pressure. The Nuclear Threat Initiative publicly maintained overview lists Russia's submarine force at 64 submarines total, 16 ballistic missile submarines, 14 nuclear attack submarines, 11 guided missile submarines, and 23 diesel-electric attack boats. Russia's Yasin M class is a genuine peer-level threat that American attack submarines may face in contested waters. The U.S. Navy's advantage is not only in reactor technology, sonar processing, and weapon systems. It is in human sustainment. The ability to keep a crew sharp enough to execute complex missions inside a sealed environment with no sunlight, limited privacy, and relentless watch rotations for months on end. The Navy's shift from an 18-hour rotation to a 24-hour rotation is proof that the institution treats sleep the way it treats weapons maintenance, as a direct input to combat capability. A rested crew detects contacts faster, makes better tactical decisions, and sustains performance across 90-day patrols. A fatigued crew makes mistakes. Undersea warfare does not forgive mistakes. And the people who endure this life earn their place through a process the Navy takes seriously. U.S. Navy Personnel Policy, MILPERS-MIN 1220-040, states that being designated qualified in submarines represents an intensive personal effort. Commanding officers are specifically instructed not to consider sailors from basic enlisted submarine school as qualified until they pass an oral and practical examination demonstrating knowledge of ship systems and operating procedures. Enlisted personnel are not eligible for the designation until they have served aboard a submarine for at least 6 months, with sufficient underway time to validate their knowledge. The silver dolphins pinned on a submariner's chest are not decorative. They are a statement that this sailor understands every system that keeps the boat alive and can operate them under pressure. That culture of earned trust extends to every unwritten rule aboard. The USS Missouri account links peace on board directly to pride and mutual respect. Submariners are all volunteers. Nobody is forced into this duty, and they protect the scarcest resource, sleep, through social agreements that civilians would find extraordinary. No slamming doors, no unnecessary noise, no grievances aired in shared spaces. The boat runs on competence, discipline, and the understanding that every person aboard chose to be there. The Navy can build nuclear submarines that stay submerged for months. It can generate oxygen from seawater, manufacture fresh water through reverse osmosis, and carry enough Tomahawk missiles to reshape a battlefield from beneath the surface. But the submarine force wins or loses on something no reactor can produce. Whether a human being can sleep in a 2-foot-wide rack, shower in 4 minutes, eat from an 80-square-foot galley, and still think clearly enough to fight the boat when the order comes. These are the men and women of the United States Submarine Force. They deserve far more recognition than they get. If you found this valuable, subscribe and share this with someone who should know what these sailors endure. Next time, we are going inside the weapons systems that make these submarines the most lethal platforms beneath the waves, and why America's adversaries have no answer for what is coming next. You do not want to miss it.